do the mapping here. I need to do the mapping here. So I have to. I need to convert all the objects here because they will all be from the domain model. The interface, the data interface are working with the domain model, so they will return a list of categories. But eventually, I want to return a list of my JSON model and not the categories. And also here, I don't want to return the category. I want to return the JSON model instead. So I need to convert all of these into my model, and also here. So the reason for moving that into another class is because I don't want to write the same code here and the same code here, because that will be don't repeat yourself problem. So I want to just call a method that knows how to do that work. So that's what the factory can do. So it can return a new category model, and then it can. Right now we don't know what to do with the URL. We'll solve that problem in a moment. But it can take the name and say that should be equal to the category name. I don't know if you have the time today, but there is a tool out there for C# called AutoMapper that can do this mapping for you. So let's see if we have the time for doing that later today. But if not, I just mention it here. I can say. So if I don't get there, there's a hint in the code. So if you look at the code, you will. Because what that can do is you just set up a mapping, and then you can just give it a category as input, and then it will automatically map. And it does the same as the entity framework. It just map on the names. So look at the name in the output. So in this case, it looks inside the category model and see, okay, it needs an ID. Oh no, it doesn't have an ID. It needs a URL. Do the category have a URL? No, so I can't do anything about that. It needs a name. Do it have a name? Yeah, bang. Then set that value. Do you have a description? Yes, bang, set that value. And then the problem here is that if you add more attributes to then you have to go here and support that. So as long as you have the same naming for all the possible properties in your output model and your domain model, then the mapping will be easy. But now we don't have the URL here, but because that's not hard, we will solve that in a moment. But the first part is just to say, okay, I want to use this model factory here, and then use map. Don't do that right now. Map that category. Yeah, of course I need to include that. So I use this function here. I can do that also here. I can get the categories, and then I can from that select. So select is just running through all the objects. So all the categories needs to be transformed into a new. No, I just want to model factory here. Map of C. So I just instead of having is a projection so I'm doing a projection in the link. So instead of returning category objects, I'm returning category model objects instead. So it takes just run through the categories, and for each element in there, it will transform it from a category, that's the part input to your Lambda here, to a category model, because that's the mapping. So I was just doing exactly the same as I'm doing here for each and every element in the list. And then it will just return that right away. It will probably be very nice to do something like this. Because it makes it easier to understand. Especially because we want to extend that in a moment. Oh, I need a semicolon here. So it's just easier to read, because when you when you inline a lot of stuff, it becomes more complicated. So the only thing that's the difference now, if you look here, is that now we have no, not that one. And we can close this one right now. So now you can see we have that's the JSON model now. We get the URL, we have URL here. So we have the same name and the same, but we don't have an ID, but we have an URL because that's what we want in our JSON model to support this hypermedia. So we saw last time that the way did we do anything with the URL last time? Yeah, we did. Yeah. So they have this URL, and you can call the action, and then you can say the name of the action and the name of the controller, its categories, and then the values. That should just be some value. Blah 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 blah. You can do that. So that's what we did last time. I want to show you another way to do that. If you go into to the route, in this case, this is the route here, and you give it a name, so you can say that the name should be equal to, for instance, something like category, whatever you decide. Should probably be below A. Then you can reference that route. And then it becomes more easy to use the URL, because then you can just say URL and then use something called a link. And what you give is the name of the route here. So that's the category. And then whatever parameter you want it to deal with. And then it will figure out all the rest. So it's easier to use that. But you need to add the name here, because now it knows that this is the route it should try to create a link to. So it knows about the server and the protocol, so it can do the HTTP : the name and the port name, and then it knows the route here will be API / categories, and then /ID, and then the ID will be whatever you have here, ID equal 5. So that will make the URL that looks like this. Weird.
So there's a spelling. It should be same like name.
It should be the same. So it should be category. Yeah. So, but that's a good point, because to solve that problem, what I normally will do is to my web API here, add a new class directly, and then call it config CS. So just a config file, and inside that config file, I will do something like public const string category route equal whatever name I like. So I never use the strings inside, because the problem is that if I have some spelling problem, if I have a spelling problem here, then everything is spelled wrongly. But so I only have, I could call it whatever I like here, it doesn't matter. So I have this is just so this is a pointer to a string instead of a reference to a string, instead of using the string itself. So inside here, where is my, just close this one now. So instead of using this string here, I'll use config dot category route. So, and I'll do the same here. So I'll never use the string inside my code. I don't want strings. Strings inside the code is a nightmare, because if you want to change them, you have to find all the places where you use them. If you have spelling mistakes, there's no way you get any information about that, because the compiler doesn't that there's a problem having one string here and another string here. It doesn't know about the similarity between these two. So, but now you know that as long as you use the right string, constant string that you have defined, then everything is fine.
So we could do the same with the database connection string. So.
Yeah. But on the other hand, on the database, you only have it in one place. So you do it in the configuration. So, but anywhere where you start using the same string more than once in your application, that it will help you. It will save you hours and hours and hours in the late. It doesn't. It took 1 minute or something like that to make that class with the string, and then bang, I just use that. It will save you, because when you start getting errors from spelling mistakes in strings, you don't get any hints. You just get an application that doesn't work. In this case, if we have a spelling mistake here, the only thing Link will do, if it can't find the route, is just return null. So it just doesn't get any URL then, and then it becomes very, very difficult. Okay, so now we have this problem that this we want actually to be able to set the URL here. So somehow I want, if I could get the URL inside here, I can do that because there's an interface to that. It's called URL helper. So if I provide the URL from the calling, so whenever that call this method here, they can also send me the URL. So I can do that here, map, and then send the URL. That's just this one here. That's the object that the controller holds. I just send it to the converter, so the converter can do the job, and I can go in here and say, okay, then I can set the URL equal to, and then use the link, use my string, because I have that config dot category route, and then give it, because this is one single category, so I know what ID it should reference. So it should reference where the ID is equal to the category ID. Okay, let's set. So I just move that from doing it inside the controller to move it into this class I made to make this conversion or the mapping. So it does exactly the same. It uses this string. So this is actually relying on this information here. Without this information, that part will not work. And then it just used the URL. That's the functionality that the framework is providing. This URL, when it's called inside here, it knows everything because it knows the request. So it knows the URL, so it can build up a URL, and it knows the output path. It should be the API and the controller name, and then slash the ID that I provide, and I provide the ID here, so that would be the category. So slash the category ID. So it would be API slash category slash the ID that this specific category have. So there would be a pointer exactly to that specific category. So I just moved it into this helper class because then it makes it much easier to understand the code here, because it's not important. I just removed this one. It's not important to know that here, because here I'm just doing the mapping, and the same down here. I just give it the URL, and then the problem is solved in the underlying class. So I have one place to solve the problem. So I don't have to repeat myself. I just call the same method, and then everything is fine. If I save this one and go here and reload this one, should be able to see the URL here. So now I can build the URL for me. You can see it uses the class name. So so due to this, due to this, it just take the class name directly. That's why I get this categories with a big C. It's not a big deal on this server here, but on if you're running it in Apache or something like that, then the categories with a small c and with a big C is two different things, because it's paths inside the. And if you're on the Unix system, there's a difference between file names with capital letters are not the same as with the small letters. So I will normally choose to use this instead, naming it directly, because it's not that likely that I will change the controller name. And if I change the controller name and it doesn't work, I know why. So I like to be more precise here, but that's just my taste. So you will see now if I rerun this one, then it will be small c here, because it used the route, and I define the route as API/categories, and then it will add the 5. That's the ID. So that 5 is just added here by the use of this. So this is the URL, and this is the data for filling in the last part of the URL. So it's actually not magic, because when you do a request, you give it a URL. So that will be the request here. So if we are here, that will be the request. So you know all this information in the request. That's most of what you have here. The only thing we have to do is to add the pointer to the specific category. And we do that by for each category add that ID. Make sense? Or so it's, of course it's magic, because this one can do that, but it's not. Just think about URL as being some object that knows about the route, and it knows about the server and the whatever, so it can just build that string, because it have all that knowledge. So it's not magic in that sense, and we need to give it a route here, so we point directly to what it should use. This one is actually API/categories/ID. So that's because I have this global. So everything in this controller starts with API categories, and then add to that. Here we don't add anything. Here we add the ID. So I don't want to do. If you do this, you will have API categories/API categories/ID. So it will be weird. Yep. So now we have everything up and running for this part. So let's try to. The last two things I want to do today is to add the post, put, and delete, so we can see how that is done. It's not a big deal. It's actually rather easy. And then try to give an example of how to deal with the paging. So how could you solve that problem? So eventually, what we want to do here is go into this get. So instead of returning the data, we want to return some result. That is a new object. It's not a new string, but just a new object. So we want to create a new object. So inside that, we want to have the data equal data. So that's our list. But we also want something like total. How many elements are there in total? Should be equal to whatever. I just set it to something. We want to have the blah blah blah. We will, of course, we need to fill in the blanks here, but I just want to show you. And we want to have next equal some other. Okay, this. It should, of course, be a URL here. So we have to figure out how to get that. So we want to create that object and return that instead. And if we do that, we get something like this instead. So it's just an object with some more attributes in it. So what we get here is one object as the result, and inside that object we have the total, the previous and the next, and then also the data that is provided here. Can you feel it? So that's I'm just extending the output with some extra information where data is part of it. So what the client get is the total, because if you have paging, we only get a subset of the data. So total means how many elements are there in total, and prev means how to get to the previous page, and next how to get to the next page when we do paging, so we can do some nice interface later on. So that's what I want to do today, and then but let's try to implement this one here. So post, we never want to do a void. We always want to return information to the client because the client needs to know if everything is okay. So and what we want to get is some JSON object that is sent to us. That JSON object needs to be on the same at the JSON model, because that's the only thing the client knows about. So you'll get a JSON object here. So that will be the category model that you get here, and we can just call that the model. So we get a model back. We want to transform that. We want to map that into a category and then add it to our database. So we want somehow want to do like this. So use the model factory to map. Of course, it can't do that right now because we only have the other way around. We can map from the domain model to the JSON model, but now we need to map in the other direction, because now we get some JSON in from the client that's in the JSON model, and transform that into a domain representation. So that's one thing we need to do. Then we want to call our data service and say add, and then we want to add a category. We don't have all this, and then we want to return OK. And probably return the category. So what we do is using the model factory again. No, not binder factory. And then map the category. So you can say why do we actually get the model, transform it into a category, add it to the database, and then return the category. What the difference between this one doesn't have any information about the ID because it doesn't know anything about it. It's a new object, so it doesn't have any information about the ID. So here we get a category without an ID, so the ID will be undefined, will just be null, whatever. And then we add it to the database. Then we assume that this add will actually set the ID of the category, and then we can return a new object with the ID. So then the client create this object, and also what you get back is the object that is created with the ID, so the reference to how to get to that object. So let's try to do that. Let's go to the factory here, and we want to create a new one here. So I just copy that, and what we want to do is just reverse this one. So that would be a model. We don't need this URL part because we don't set the URL when we map in that direction. So what we do here is just remove that part and change that into the model. So that's mapping in the other direction. And Automapper also have this. When you set up the map, you can just exchange it with a reverse map. So it will provide both directions in the same part. So you don't have to write this code. You need to write this part here, but you don't need to write this one because you can just map in both directions. Do you follow this? So I get a JSON model. It have URL, name, and description. I want to transform that into a category domain object that have ID, name, and description. But I don't know anything about the ID because it's a new object. So I just set the name and the description. Then ID will be null. No, zero. But it will be zero, not null, because it's an integer. And then, so that's part. That part is the first part. So now we can do the mapping. So we have to make this one. So I just use that to create. I don't know. There could be some mistake in the database that was not able to add. So in order to deal with that, we'll be calling exceptions and so on. But so right now we don't care about the so just avoid. And then I want to implement that. So here I need to implement that. The way to do that is just to borrow this part because that's the same. So it will not return anything. So what we do here, we get the category. We have to set the category ID. So I will want to set the category ID to the new ID. So one way to get the new ID is go to the DB categories, get the max of so find the highest number of the ID and then +1. So I get the highest ID and then just add 1 to that, and then that will be the new ID. Of course, what you will do is use some part of the database that can do that for you, but right now we don't have that. So and then I want to add this to the database. So that's just say db add this category. So now I'm adding it to the entity framework, and then I want to add it to the database. So I want to save changes. So that's all you have to do in order to work with the entity framework. We'll do the insert into blah blah blah. That's done for you. That's pretty nice. The only thing, this will work, except concurrency can be a problem here because you could have two clients that are adding a new one at the same time, so they get the same ID. So you have to do some synchronization there. And another problem could be that what about the first object? Then when you add the first object to the database, then this one will return a null. And if you have null +1 will be null, and then the ID will only cannot be null, and then you just get an error. To solve that problem, entity framework has something that's called default empty. So go to the default value if it's empty, and the default value of max is an integer. So the default value of an integer is 0, and 0 plus 1 is 1. So we get the first one. It's not a big deal here because we have data. So that will add something to our database. Let's see if that's working. Let's just check that everything is fine. The only thing here is that now I'm mapping in the other direction. I need the URL, so I have to put that in here. That's the same. It's exactly the same mapping as I had up here. No difference. But the problem, what is done here is that I actually added an ID to that category, and that means when I map it back again, I get the URL for that specific ID, so I know exactly. So what I get back is an object that knows the reference to itself. So if we go here, and I don't have Postman because I reinstalled. Why did I do that? So I have to install Postman. Extensions. Go to extensions here. I think that you can add it to Chrome. I think you can do something by, I don't know how.
Maybe you should choose add instead of extension.
I mean, it's added. so it's already added, so I have it here, but I can normally you could do a so in order to start it, that's my point here.
So there's an X over on the left side. The middle.
This one?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I want the app, yeah, fine. Thank you. That's the one I want. Yeah. Thank you, my friend. It's always so much easier to just be yourself when you're doing this. When you're sitting, you just forget some stupid things. I've done this a million times. No, I don't want. So I can just try our this one. It's giving the same output as before. So if I want to check my post, I have to give a post, and I just copy this just to go to the body of the header as raw. So I can add that. I don't need the URL, so I want to test and blah blah. So I want to add this to our database. I got it. So the body have a raw body, and I want to say how should it be interpreted. So that's the information it's sent to. So how should the receiver interpret this body? Should interpret it as JSON. So what I'm doing is sending this object to the database, not to the web service, and say, please add this to the database. But you have to interpret the body of the request as JSON. So I send this, and it's okay, but I didn't get something back. Let's see if we actually got that. Did it do it? Yeah, but the description here was null. Why is that?
And you wrote the test only. It's testing too.
Oh yes, this is not even the right one. So something. This is probably something I did earlier because it should be test and blah blah, but it's sending. So let's try to figure out what is. Well, probably because I didn't save my stuff here, so it didn't add. It will only recompile if it knows that something is changed. Or so you can see now I'm waiting, and in the background here you can see it's actually compiling. So it didn't add all the stuff I just made. So what we should expect here is that we get a number 10 here, but also expect that when we send this, we want to have something back here. Oh, an internal server error. Bang! Something went completely wrong. So the way to solve that problem is to put a breakpoint here. If you can't find out what, put a breakpoint here. Start this with the debugger. So, of course, it doesn't know this value. You can change that, but it doesn't matter because I will go to here and then send this request again. Okay, we get to this point here. We can see that the model have the right information. So, and it will transform it into, if we step to the next one here, the category now have the right information. It have the name and so that's working fine. So something is going wrong here. So let's jump into that one.
It shows the ID is 0. So
no, yeah, but that's okay because we don't have an ID there. We should be setting the ID. So here, bang. There's something wrong here. So I don't know what's the problem, but let's try to minimize what could be wrong. So let's just stop this one. So I take that away here because I can't see why we want to get the maximum ID and add 1 to it. So I don't know what the reason. It can be that you have to do it after. Oh, anyway. Otherwise, I just can use C# because if this is null, I can. Do you know this operator here? Yeah, or whatever. So you can solve that. But right now we just want it to work. So I just start this again. So because I just run it in the debug, then the server, and I stop the debugger, then the server is not running now. So I use Control F5. I don't want to debug it. I just want to see if it's working because and now it's running, and we can go over here and I can do this. Bang! Now it's working. So that was something wrong with that default. Probably because it's the database is not supporting that or something like that. So so you can see I send this, I get this back. So it means it added it as the 10th element. So if we go back to this one here, just close this one and this one, and get back to this one, and we have the same. Port number. So you can see now it's added here. Everything is fine, and I can fetch that now if I want. If not 107, but 10. So I managed to add something to the database from outside by use of the RESTful interface. So update is pretty much the same. Let's do that. Oh, I will just do I forgot that before. Add post. Because if I remember this, then it's easier for you to use it because you can go to that specific one and see what's the difference between that one and what did I actually do there. So let's take that away. So we want to do exactly the same thing here on the put. The put is called on a specific element. So we need the element to be in the database in order to update it. Otherwise, it's not possible. So again, we need the category model. Just call it model, and then we pretty much do the same as we did here. So we just borrow this one. So instead of doing this, we do an update on the category, and we also set the category ID here because we know that. We get it in as an argument here. So we need to call it with the /ID and then do the put HTTP on that. Then we call update, and then we need to say something like if not update. That means we didn't have the object was not in the database because they try to update something that is not in the database. We will just return not found. Otherwise, we can return the category, or we can just return OK. Depends on, because they know everything. They know the ID already, and so it depends on what you want to do. But we need to implement this one. So it should return a Boolean and take a category. I want to implement that. I just borrow this because it's not exactly the same, but close to. So the first thing I do is to get the category. That's the DB cat. So I try to find the category first, or default as we used it before, where the category ID equals this the ID of the category we want to update. So that's the category we have inside that one we are sending over. That's why we set the category here, so we know what ID do we want to update. So that's this part. What is wrong here?
Is it equal?
It's equal, thank you. So, and then if this one is null, we didn't find that ID, so we are trying to update something that's not in the database, we just return false. So that's fine. And then we don't need to do this. And when we do an update, so this will be one way to do solve this problem here. So so now I have to write this, that the DB context, the DB category dot name should be equal to the category. So I have to do that for each and everything inside that, and that'll be very clumsy. So the solution to this problem is to say DB attach. So I attach this category because that's part of the domain model. So I'm trying to attach the category again in here. I want to attach that to the entity framework. So it's like saying, use this object as I actually got it from you. So it's part of the database. So I attach it to the model. So the model that the entity framework is working with. So it's not on the database yet. It's just inside the entity framework as an object that is attached to the database. So there's a relationship to the database. And then I can just do save changes. And then the database will look what are the difference between what's inside the database, and it will do the update for me. The only thing I have to do is that when I have to set the, I think it's called the entry of category state equal to modify. So I attach the object back. It's inside the database. No, inside entity framework we are working with the domain objects. Category here is a domain object, so it knows how to deal with categories. The database entity framework knows about that. So I just say attach this one to the entity framework. And when I do that, it will have a state. So this object, what the entity framework does is actually it works with the state. So when it fetches the data from the database, it sets the state of that object, and then it keeps that object around. And if you change something, it will change the state of that object. So when you want to save changes, it looks at the state of the object. If the object is not changed, then it will do nothing. But if it's changed, it will update the data. And in this case, when I set this to modified, it will set the complete object as changed. So the entity framework will do the mapping. It will actually send all the attributes in an update statement to the database, except of course the ID. So I don't have to do that mapping. Entity framework will do that. So what I have to do here is just to say DB save changes. So that's pretty easy. A lot of help from the entity framework. The only thing that we have to deal with is we need to add a return statement. And save changes are returning an integer, and the integer says something about how many rows were affected by this statement here. So I can say return changes greater than 0. So that means that it did an update, because if it should be 1 row, so I could do like this equal 1. So that means that 1 row was affected by this update here, because that's the single category that I'm holding here. That's updated in the database. So 1 row is updated. So it will return 1. So this is working. It's working as long as we are doing. We are not. If we want to attach a category that have another ID than we have in a database, one that's not in a database, it doesn't know how to deal with that, and will throw an exception. So just want to wrap this into a try-catch. Because attaching it means this, I'm changing the database. Here an object, it's actually part of the database, so I can just attach it again. I can detach and attach objects to the entity framework. And the entity framework is running on the computer. And so the objects that it gets from the database, it will keep track of these objects. So that's why you just can call add changes. So you can just change the name and say save changes. It will keep track that, okay, somebody changed that object, as long as it have the knowledge about that object. But if you send it to somebody else, it doesn't know anything about the object. So when you get the object back again, you have to say, okay, now the object is coming back. In the statement, I actually started to fetch it, so the client actually got it in one statement, and then it updated in the next statement. But that's two different statements, and the database doesn't have the hold on the object in between because it's two calls to the framework. So there's no idea that that's the same. But now I'm saying this is actually an object you already know about. So I'm just attaching it back to you. So now you should take care of that object. So it's just saying, here are one of your objects. Please take care of them.
I have a question.
Yeah.
But this we update the one table category. What if this have the constraint on another table?
Yeah. So if you have the constraint, this state here only set the modified on the first level. If you have a second level, you have to go and set the state of that part also yourself. So if you have a reference, so if it's an object that say you have inside the product, you have a reference to a category, for instance, and then you have you update what you do is actually update the category for that specific product. Then you have to attach it, and then set the state not only on the product but also on that attribute that is a reference. That's part of it. There's some tools for helping with that, but that's not a big deal in what we are doing in this course here. So I don't want to go into the details because it's a little bit complicated. But you can do that. Otherwise, what you have to do is just Google on entity framework and state and attaching blah blah blah. So you get some information about that if you need to know about that.
How about if we have a trigger in the database model that it is this updated then also automatically?
Oh, that's that. So you check about this number here. Yes, then it could be that this save changes actually have more than one row. That's the reason for doing greater than 0 instead. So at least one row needs to be updated here. So if one row is updated, I assume that everything went well. So that would be the solution to that problem. It could be one or more rows. Yeah. Catch, I think it's DB concurrency here. It's actually a DB update concurrency exception you get, because we talked about last time this optimistic concurrency. So that means that you are working with the timestamp. If somebody changed something, this exception is called. So that means that you tell me to update this category, but the category is not in the database. The reason for it's not in the database is probably because somebody deleted it. So there's a concurrency problem. While you was looking at that, somebody deleted that. So you fetched, it think that you fetched the data, then did some update to it, and then want to update it. But in the meantime, somebody deleted that object. It doesn't know about that, but the only thing it knows is that it's not in the database anymore. So it'll just return an exception and say it's not there. So you can take care of that. So the only thing we want to do is just to return false here, because from our point of view, we didn't find the object that we want to update. In C# you don't need to instantiate that if you don't use it. So you just tell what type you should catch on. But since I don't use that exception, I don't need to have that EX or that name, because the compiler knows about that. So let's see if we can do an update. I want to save this. Go over here to Postman and say now I want to update. So I go here and use put, and I need to give an ID. I know this one was 10 the last time we did that, so I can say times 2, 3, whatever, but something that gives me some new noise, and then send it to the database, and I will get a 404 if it's not found, and a OK if it's found. That was the implementation here. If it doesn't, if this return false, it's say not found. So why is that a problem here? Because I have void here. I need to have the action result. I need to return something. If you find the object, it should be not found. Oh, no, if it didn't find the object, it should be not found. If you found it, it's just an OK. So no data back, but just the OK or not. So we run this, and we just have to compile and restart the server. And it gives me an OK. So if we go back to here and reload that, nothing happened. It's always nice when you do something like this. So we have to figure out why. Oh, don't you love this? Programming is nice. So back to the debugger. Start the debugger. Oh, that's the. So that's it. There was some mistake here. Oh, so that was the problem. It was not that my code didn't work. It's always nice. There was one too much. So since I didn't compile it here, but I assumed that the ASP.NET will compile it when it needed. So now I will do the compiling here, so I see that it's actually compiling. So that was not. So now it compiles. Then I can restart my server. I didn't find that, but now we should actually be able to put some data into the. You get an OK, go over here and reload that one. Bang, updated. So let's try to update 101. It's not there. You get it not found. So it do what it's supposed to do. So the code for doing this is not that difficult. Conceptually, there's a lot of things you have to control in your mind. So I know that. So I'm not saying that it's easy. It's just the code itself is not that difficult. And the last one we have to implement is this delete. It's actually the simplest one, because you just have to say data service, delete, category, if this ID is not there. Then if not, I like to have the then return not found. Not found. Otherwise, return OK. Yeah, it's complaining because I don't have this I action in here. So let me be nice and do this. I like you can do whatever, but I like it to have the solve the problem first, and then if it gets all the way through, it's fine. So I of course I could have done it the opposite way, but just be consistent when you're doing something. If you do it like this, it's easier for other people to know about it. So all the other ones I actually just call them update or add, because I give it an object of a category, so it knows what I want to add, so I can overload the add. But in the delete, I just give it an integer, so I need to create a name where they have the category in it. So somehow that when I'm looking at this, it starts. I can see a smell here because I'm not consistent. So I have get category, delete category, add an update, but just assuming that from calling that it knows that it's a category. So what I will do is actually start refactoring and then say, okay, this should also be category, because it makes it easier to just do that. It will do it all the way all these places where I use it. So it reads better here. Get category, add category, update category, delete category. So from the interface point of view, it reads better. It doesn't change the system, but it makes it easier for the user that will use my interface here. So if I'm providing this interface to somebody else, my colleague, I think that add category, delete category, update category makes sense. Then I will have a add product, delete product, update product, get product. So it makes it's easier. Otherwise, some of them will be overloaded and some not. So the consequence is I cannot overload get and delete. So they are the one that define my interface. Of course, this didn't change anything, but just about thinking about a good interface for your future, for the people that are using your system is not a bad thing. So I do the same as I did up here. Did I do it here? Actually, this one, I want to find the category with a specific ID. That's the one I want to delete. So that's the first thing. Get that one. So that's I find the category with this ID. If that's null, it's not there. So if category equal null, return false. Otherwise, db delete remove. I think it's called. Do the same here. Return changes greater than sure. Just to be sure. Something could happen to somebody else. Well, of course, eventually you need to wrap all this into try and catch. Not in your project because but if you have a lot of users and so on, you need to. Somebody else could have, because I can find it here. And then before I get to this statement here, somebody else could delete it. So this will actually fail. So, but I'm not taking that into consideration. So I look for it. If I can't find it, I return false. Give me the opportunity to give the nice feedback. Because if I just do nothing and people call, it doesn't know if it actually deleted something or didn't work or whatever. So it gets a 404 if it didn't do the delete, and it get a 200 okay if you do the delete. So let's try to delete what we just added to the system. Should we be wiser now and then try to compile it first, so we can see that it actually compiles. Yeah. And then we can go here and just change this into a delete, and then go here and say, okay, I want to delete number 10. Send the request to restart the server. Say, okay, let's go back here and see if so 10 is out of the picture. So if I call that again, it should give me a 404 because it's not there anymore. So, and if I want to delete, it's actually not using this body here. It's not sending the body at all. So I can delete that one and go over here and reload that, and we are back to the A8 that is part of the domain. So that was all the CRUD operations in JSON. Actually, with the model mapping and everything, so that's pretty much what you just need to be able to move into your environment in your Stack Overflow. So the last part is actually to deal with these two guys here, or three guys here. So the first one is easy. It's just to say data service get number of categories. So you just move that problem to somebody else. So I just implement that. Get number of categories, implement that. It's just stealing this part here because I'm so lazy.
You're pressing Control plus Alt for shortcut for implementing, right?
Yeah, no, Enter and Alt.
Enter.
Yeah, or you can just move out to the out here. That is this hammer, and if you click on that one, you will. Yeah. So here, what we want to do is to return. Should be an integer, and we just want to return the count here. Not f count, but count. So return the number of categories. I just want to go here and say that this should be an integer. Otherwise, it probably should remember to do the changes now and say add update, add delete. Oh, now it's there. So the first part was easy. That was just to get the number of if we save this and go here and look at this reload back, should actually give us the 8 here. So 8 is the number, so that's fine. Check, done. So now these two guys here are the problem. So I want links. So somehow I want to be able to have something like an integer that is the page, and an integer that is the page size. So it tells me what page I'm on and what should the size of the page be. So I want to go to the database and say, give me the next 10 and the next 10 and the next 10, and the page are the next one, and the page size is what? How many? So somehow get categories needs to have page and the page size as but I want these to have default values. So this one is easy. It's just the first page is just page 0, and the page size, I think that should be equal to some default page size I choose. And how to choose that? Add something to my config file, because then I can reuse that on the other controllers I have. So not a static but a const. Default page size equal, let's say 10. So I have a constant value telling me what should be that number. I could of course just have used 10 here, but then I have magic numbers in my. It doesn't say anything. 10 doesn't say anything, but this, when somebody reads it, it's easy to see what's the meaning here. It's the default number, and this is the first page. Oh, I could have, but that makes sense. It tells the story itself. 0 is a good story, but 10 is not. 25 or whatever, 17. That is my. And then I want to call this with the page size and the page. I go to my interface. Get categories should have these two. Just changing the interface to match, and then I go to the implementation. should also have these two integers here. So in the first place, I'm not using it for anything at all. So building this should just work. So everything should be fine. Of course, it's not using what I'm doing at all. So I can go here and re-click here and should be running fine. And I can set the attributes here. So I could say page equal 1 and then run it. Then it will just accept it, but I'm not using it. So I want to implement that. I do that here. No, not here. In the database. That's the MySQL search. So I want to say, okay, I don't want to get the categories only. I want to do take. That's the one, and that should be the page size. So I want to take some number. So now it will only take. But I also want to skip some. So if the page is, it's easier to draw because it's. So I have all my elements here. So I want this to divide it into pages. So this is page 0, 1, 2, and 3, and this is my page size. So giving it 0 means I don't have to skip. So this is the database. The database is just giving me everything. But if I say skip to the database, it will jump down in the database, so skip some of the elements, and then takes the next X elements. So if I use skip and page size together, so if page size is if page is equal to 0 and page size is equal to 10, then if I skip no pages and take the first 10, I get the first 10 one. When I get to the next one, if I skip page time page size, then next time page will be 1 and page size will be 10. 1 times 10 will be skip the first one and give me the next 10. So if I skip every time the page time the page size, I will move 1 down. Can you follow that? So if I have page and page size, so then if this is 0 and this is 1, then the number, no, this is 10, the number I have to skip is 0. If this is 1 and this is 10, I have to skip the first 10. If this is 2 and this is 10, I have to skip the first 20. So give me from 1 to 10, from 11 to 20, from 21 to 30, and so on. Follow that? Yeah. Sometimes when you run into something like this, it makes it so much easier just to take a piece of paper and then try to get the concepts in your head, because you always miss this up. Should it be 0? Should it be whatever? So what I've learned doing 30 years of programming, I always take a piece of paper even though it shouldn't be that difficult. It's just, should the integer be 1 or 0? That's probably the most. The highest reason for making mistakes in programs. That's that. Do I start the loop with 0 or with 1, or should I drop out? Whatever. So I made many mistakes. So I want to do a skip here, and I want to skip the page times page size. That's what because then the first time I don't skip anything. The next time I skip 10, and I skip. So because that's what I have here. That's page time page size. So that's what I want to skip. You cannot do this. I don't know. You couldn't do that before, but in the other versions of Entity Framework, you have to. I think we get the problem here. In order to do this, there's no. When you have a relational database, there's no rules of order in the database. So this skipping and taking doesn't make sense if the database isn't in a specific order. So you could not just rely on on the database being in the same order, because the database are allowed to, whenever somebody adds something new, that they can rearrange the data in any way it likes. So you don't necessarily get it in the same order that it's added. So you don't know if it's have ID 1 to N, but it could be 1 to whatever something, and then be something else, and then it can be missed around. So in order to be sure that you get it in the same order, I use an order by, and then say what I want to order by the ID. It's not a big deal. It doesn't cost you anything, because that's the primary key. And so it's already have an index. So just do look up in that index. So it's not a big deal. So order it, know it's the same order every single time, no matter how the database is changed. Then skip something, and then take the first page size, number of the page size. So this is what I want to do. Let's try to see what happens here. In this case, it is not a big deal. I think I should not get anything, because I have page 1 and a default of page size. Yeah, so it shouldn't give me anything, because I'm actually skipping 1 times the page size, and my page size is 25. So if I set the page size here, now we only have 8, so I just set it to 2. So I should get 3 and 4, because 1 and 2 is skipped. If I get to the previous page here, it should be this one. That's the first 2. Can you see that? So it's actually working. So if I use 3 here, get the first 3, and I can take the next one here. So that's from 4 to 6. So that's working. That's just what I did there. Just use the right entity framework and link statements to do the job. Skip something, and then take the next N elements. That's what's doing here. So what I'm doing here. So now what we have to do is to provide this part here. So we want somehow that we have a var that's equal to something. So we just need to find out what's at something, because we want to be smart. If we're on the first page, we want the previous to be null, because we cannot move further. There's nothing to go, because we're on the first page. So that's one thing we have to deal with. So we can say if the page is equal to 0, then it should be null. Otherwise, it should be something else. You know that syntax? So on this one, if we are on the last page, it should be null. Otherwise, it should be. So when are we on the last page? So now I need to have, in order to know about the last page, I need to know the total number of elements in. So I need this total here also as part of my. So I need this one not only here but here, because I need it. So I don't want to ask the database more than once, because it's actually counting on the database. So I get this element for once, and I have to use it here for something, and then so I can start setting this to a null. But the compiler complains because it doesn't know what null is. It doesn't know what should the type be here. So either I have to write string here, or I have to say that it should cast it. Doesn't matter. Could do both. I could also have done a string here. That doesn't matter. So and then I have to do the logic. Say, okay, if so this is if it's the last page. So I just have to find out if it's not the last page. So if it is the case that total minus page times page size is less than 0, or something like that. So if I have all the page, so if I have one column more here, so let's say we have these 8 elements and we have a page size of 2. then this will be 2, 4, 6, 8. Oh, it's 2. Sorry. So in order to find out, so 8 is a problem. Now I have two things I have to take into consideration. One, that actually match equally on page size. So I don't have anything left. So the last page will be completely full. That's the consequence when I have 8. If I have 9, the last page will have 1 element because it will be 2, 2, 2, 2, and 1. So that's the difference. Do I have a remainder or do I not have a remainder? Is there anything left? So that means is the page size times page equal to the total. That's one thing. Then it should be this one. Then I'm there. If it's not, then this is the last page. If this is the case, this is the last page. Otherwise, this is the last page. Think about it. It's a very simple problem, but you have to conceptually understand it because otherwise so in this case, when I have 8 elements, I can have them in 4 pages. That's these 4 pages here. So the last, we should not be able to get to this point here if we have 8 elements. If we have 9, we should get to this point. So that means that we have to have some logic, say. Yeah, so somehow it's more complicated. It's not a complicated thing, but it's more complicated just to have in a simple if statement because you have two different things. So what I like to do when I run into this problem like this is actually to create a method and then say, okay, public bool, say last page, and it takes the int of the page, the page size, and should not be, and it will just return false for now. Of course you should not do that, but then it's easier to write the code up here because then I can just say should either be this or it's so what I will do is last page of page size and total. Makes it easier to read here. If it's the last page, it should return string of null. So otherwise, it should return the URL. We haven't got to that yet. So either returns null or return the URL. This last page will figure that out. Just if it's the last page, but it's not the page that is the last, because we are looking at the next one. So if page plus 1 is the last page, so we assume we are on the page now, and then we want to put the link to the next page. In order to do that, we have to figure out if there is a next page. Can you follow that? So that's page plus 1. If page is 0 here, then of course we cannot have. We know that this is the first page. So in order to be very nice, I will. If you're using Control Shift R is a refactoring. So I want to extract a method here, and I want to call it is first page. Of course, you don't need that, but it reads. It's easier to read because it will just do like this. Is first page. It's just down here. I just move it down to the other one, so we have them here. So it checks if it's the first page. Of course, it's very simple, but it makes it read easier up there because it does just say if we are on the first page, then null. Otherwise, give me the URL to the page -1. If we're on the last page, return. If the next one will be the last page, then return null. Otherwise, give me the URL to the page +1. So that makes sense, or what? We don't look like that, but so we can say if total minus page times page size is less than is greater than or equal to null. If that's the case, return true, otherwise return false. So if I take the total number of elements and I take away the elements that the page will point to, so that's the number of elements I'm skipping, and so if I'm skipping more than I have in my total, then the next page will not have anything in it. So that means, so what I will be skipping in the next page will be page times page size, because that's what I'm skipping. I'm skipping this. So here should be 6. So when I'm here, I'm on the last page. Then page +1 will be 4. Page times page will be 8, and that means that total, that is 8 minus page times page size, that's also 8. If that's greater than or equal to 0, greater than or equal to, depends on if I'm with, then I should return true, because I'm on the last page. Otherwise, I'm not on the last page. Simple math is complicated because it's conceptually, you have to understand it. So the last thing I'm missing here is I need to be able to have a function here, get URL, and what I want to put in here is the page -1, the page size, something like that. And I need the URL to help me. I want to use the same idea, so I need this function here. And down here I can call the same function with the URL and the page +1 and the page size. So I'm assuming that this function can actually create, and I'll just do something that is rather nice when you have more complicated statements. It's easier to read if you do like that. So if the first page, then if you're on the first page, then return null. Otherwise, give me the URL to the page -1, because it needs to set these attributes here. So it needs to set these attributes in the URL. So it needs to create this with the question mark and the page size. So I create this one, this method here. It should just return a string. Doesn't know anything about that. And then what we have to do here is to use the URL and use this link. And then we need the some string here, and then we add a new object here with the page and the page size. So it will create that for us. If we can give it the link, it will add this one here. That's because this one is smart. It looks at the URL. Like before, when we had this ID, it looks at the URL and look, can the ID be placed in the URL in the slashes? And you can see that the URL have blah 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 slash ID in the end before, so we'll add the ID there. If it can't find something in the URL where it can put the information, it needs to put should be page size here, so a page. If it can't find somewhere to put the page and the page size, it'll just add it as attributes, as the query string. That's what you get from this one here. So it's a smart one. So the only thing I have to do is to find out what should be here, and to get there I need to put a name here, so I can reference that. So that should be config, because that's another other route than we used before. So this is the categories route instead of the category for one category. This is for, so that's the route to all the categories. No, and then I just go here and use my. It's dangerous to do this copy and paste, but I feel good today, so so I have a name here, so I can use that name. I need that name down here. Config categories name, and then return. So and then the only thing we have to do is to add this one. What I could do was move this logic here into the get URL, but then I need to have two functions, one to get the next and get the previous. I'll probably do something like that, because this is this part here makes it more difficult to understand this. It's not that interesting. This for understanding what's going on here. This is not. I could easily have something here saying get previous URL with the parameters, and then that'll be easy to read. But this one is not easy to read. It's never easy to read these questions mark and colon if you have a lot. But that's for refactoring. Let's see if everything's working. So we know that the logic is working, because we saw we could actually skip by hand. But can we also provide the right information? That's the next part here. So let's take away this part here and see. So it should get up with the next link, but not a previous link. So it doesn't have a previous link, but you can see it knows about how to set the link. The next page is page 1, and the page size is 10, because that's the default page size. So in this case, it should actually not be there. So something is not working here, because I can keep on moving here, because so somehow our logic doesn't work. So I can go back here. I can get back to the first page that's here. So somehow let's try to see if it's because it's so it's absolutely not working. Thank you. No idea why it's not working. We have to debug that. It's probably because I actually don't. So I think that it's the last page that is not working, because this one seems to work. When I get down here, it's fine. When I get to the first one, it starts showing that link. So it's the last page logic. So we used a lot of time to figure out how to understand that and do it right, and then we fucked it up. That's the name of programming. because it's always when you do logic like that you miss stuff up. So we have to figure out what is the problem. Let's so if it's last page, it should actually return null. Otherwise it should return the link to the next page. Yes, and we are looking for if the next page is actually not the last page. So let's look at the logic here. So we get in the door first time with not a 0 here, and whatever here doesn't matter because that will be 0 anyway because we time. So page size will be 0 the first time, and total minus 0 should be greater than or equal to null. So it should be it should return false or what? Because then it's not the last page. So we reverse the logic here. That's a little bit stupid, because then it would be better to say, yeah, it doesn't matter. I'll reverse the logic. If there's anything left after removing the parts that we want to skip, if looking at the next page, if there's anything left, we can show that. If there's anything left, then total minus what we want to skip will be greater than or equal to 0. And then, we have a problem here, because it should only be, yeah, because equal to, then we have all the stuff we need. Yeah. Programming is difficult. Let's try to see if that solves the problem. So now we have a page size of 3. We should have both links because we are on the first page. So now we have the first page, and we can go back to the no, we have the second page. We can go back to this page. So we have now shown the next part should show the last 2, only 2, but not so it should go here, and it's working. So now that's only 2 here, and we can go back, yeah, because we have 3. If we go to 2, that's where we get to the, we can get the first one here. So then
totally we get 8 categories.
And it stops there. So it's working. The logic is working now. Wow, that was difficult.
In ASP.NET we just use grid view and you figure out everything automatically.
Yeah, but you're not working with URLs, you know.
Okay. So if you don't work with URL, it's much more simple concept.
Yeah, but only that's just pissing in your pants to get hot because that helps you now. But when you get to the client, you have to do all the logic there.
Yeah, that's correct.
Then you have to figure out what is the next page. When now you so you're just pissing in your pants to get hot to get the warm. I don't know. Do you know that? Can you see it? Say that in English. Do you know that? That's a Danish. Yeah. You say that in Danish. That you know, if you're freezing. One way to solve the problem freezing is just pissing in your pants, because then it will be you get warm, but it will be very short. If you're outside in the minus 10 degrees or something like that, there you will get the warm. It will help you shortly. So that's so that what it means. So doing it, solving it the nice way or the simple way now, just move the problem to the next. And another problem about that is that you're moving it further away from the source. Now we are on the source, we are on the database, we have the access. If you have to understand that at the client level, you just have the RESTful interface. You don't know anything about the underlying, and then you have to figure out how to, when, and blah blah blah. So no, solve it now, because it's the client, it's the server that should solve this problem. Yes? So you can see right now I have 2 methods here. That's the last thing I want to do. I have these 2. Get last page and get is first page and is last page, and also this one. I got it here. Get URL. How to? do I get my here? These are all functions or methods that what I wanted to do is just remove them here and put them down here. If we want to implement the paging for another controller, I need these three functions again, because it's the same logic. The logic will not change no matter what controller I want to do paging on. I just have to do the same stuff here, inside here, but I don't, and I can actually move this logic out here. I think I want to do that. So let's show that and then call it a day. I want to say get the previous. This is the page and the page size that we put into it, and then it can say if it's first page, return null, because there's no previous one. Otherwise, return page -1, and then we have to say. The problem is if I just use an attribute, it will just name inside this new object it creates. It will just name the attribute inside that object the same as. But when I do this, then the object doesn't have a name anymore because I'm computing on it. So it's the result of that statement doesn't have a name. So I just have to say that in the output, this object needs to have two attributes or two fields, the page and the page size, because that's what's being mapped into the URL. So this is this would give us the previous one, and then we can make another one like that. That gives us the next one. And we want it to return a string, and we probably want to do pretty much the same here. We'll just say if last is last page, so it needs more information. Page size and total, so we need that here. Total. Otherwise it should. So just move it into two functions instead. If it's the last page, don't return any string, just null. Otherwise, return the link to the next page. If it's the first page, don't return anything. So that means that I can do up here, instead of having all this stuff here, I can just go here and say get this one. It should use the URL, and it should use the page, and it should use the page size. And then I can have get next page, comma page size, comma total. So looking at the complete method there, it reads it's easier to read now than with that, and even it's easier to read down in these two functions than it was with these question column. So now get the data, get the total amount, then build this object here where we have total. We get the URL to the previous page. Actually, you could also have like this here if you want to. So it reads. I don't know. Depends on how you feel about it. Does that read better than this one? I don't think so. Whatever. What I wanted to say and what I want to finish with is all this stuff here, these four functions or methods, I can reuse them in the next controller. So in order to do that, I want to move them into a superclass. So I want to create inside the controller, I want to create a new class and I call it the base controller, and it should inherit from this one here. That's fine. And then I can just move these 4 guys here. Oh, that was only 3. No. Here. Move them into my base controller. Paste them in here. Make them protected or public or whatever, doesn't matter. But it should not be private, because otherwise and then I can go back to the category controller and say, instead of inherit from the controller, it should inherit from the base controller. And then this logic is out of this class here, because it's actually general for all the classes. And then I only use it. I can reuse that for the next class. And when I'm doing that, I could probably take this part here and put it into the base class, because everybody will need that. So it should of course be the base class controller that have that, import that one. So every controller, everybody that inherits from my base controller will have a data service. So in order for that to work, I can remove it here. But then I have to implement that constructor here. I don't like constructors in the end of my class, so I put it up here. So I still need this one, because when the dependency injection is creating a category controller, it needs to know that it should inject this one here, and then the dependency injections part of the system can provide that. I just send it back to the base controller. This one needs to be protected also, and so now it's working. I can compile it. I think it should work now. I didn't change anything. This is actually refactoring. I'm not adding new functionality. I'm just refactoring my code so it becomes easier to understand. And what I like to do when I have this, I don't like this to be a protected read-only. I actually want it to be a property, because it doesn't matter. So I want to change this name to be called data service instead. And then it should be public. And it should be like this, and it could actually be a get. Oh, it should not be there. So it's something that you can only use it. You cannot set it. If you have something that only have a get, not a setup, the only place you can set it is in the constructor. So that means that every controller from now on have the access to our data service here, but it's controlled by. So whenever you create a new controller, what you do is just inherit from the base controller. And then send it to the and then you have that functionality we just made before will be available for the next controller. This part with the next. So the logic that you have implemented once is now useful for the next controller. The only thing you have to do is to actually copy and paste this part into your new controller, and then get the right information from the database, and then it's doing paging. Okay? I think we have to stop now. So I'll just save this. Yeah, a lot of stuff. This is not something you have to reinvent every time. You have to do this once, and then you can just copy and paste it and use it for the next controller and the next controller and the next controller. So the first controller is the hard one, and the next part will be easier. And most of the controllers you have to do doesn't use the complete CRUD operations. The complete set of CRUD operations is pretty much only the get, not the set, because most of the data is static data that you will be working on. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Have a nice day.
Thanks a lot.
It's on GitHub, and you can use it